A long time ago, on a comics page far, far away. Greetings and welcome to May the Panel Be With You, the Star Wars comic book show brought to you by the Punch Up Entertainment Network. I am your humble host, Mike Gargoni, and joining me, as always, the unwilling Jawas on my Imperial road trip, it's John Campbell.
Hello, everybody. Oh, that's right. Choo-choo, everybody, because we're hopping aboard the Jawa Express this week.
What is that accent?
Oh,
is that your Jawa accent?
That's my Jawa. That's what the Jawas sound like. We're going to be scrapping for parts. Isn't that what they sound like?
I want to meet one Jawa who speaks like galactic basic, and that's what he sounds like.
Yeah, like all the others are going, oh, teeny. And then you've got one that's just going, hello, everybody. Step right up, get your droids.
He's a fucking carnival barker for some reason.
right here, fresh droid parts.
Yes, all aboard the Jawa Express, because we are covering Star Wars number 32 today from 1977's run of Marvel Comics Group's present Star Wars. We've got a lot of the same creative team as before. This particular issue came out in February of 1980. We're in the 80s now, John.
It's the 80s, and you can really feel it. No,
yeah. But Archie Goodwin on writing, Carmen Infantino on pencils, Bob Wyacek on inks, Petra Goldberg on colors, and John Costanza on the letters. Which we also have to credit a certain Jim Shooter, and I want to talk about this briefly because it's been a constant complaint over the last few episodes/issues.
Yes.
And that is the coloring of one Chewbacca the Wookiee.
Ah, yes.
And I think starting in this issue, we noticed it last issue, but I think starting here and going forward, there has been a shift in how Chewbacca is consistently colored that alleviates the weird ape face that we've complained about in the past.
It makes a massive difference.
And I have to wonder who made that call and whether or not we should be thanking Jim Shooter for that.
Well, here's the thing about Jim Shooter. It is very, if you're a comics nerd like us, then Jim Shooter has this reputation, but it's like, he did like come in and fix things for the better initially. Like Marvel Comics would have been in trouble if not for Jim Shooter. Now the problem is, and what a lot of writers say, and I think I quoted that one time, I can't remember who that was, who said like, the problem with Shooter is he stayed too long and kept trying to innovate. But it's like he did steer them back onto the rails as a successful company. It's just then he was like, well, if my big ideas worked here, more big ideas. And then that took them off the rails. But it's like, yeah, he kind of came in at a time when they needed fresh creative blood following sort of the post-Stan Lee, running the ship era, and for the better. And then, because we're still a couple years out from Secret Wars, which is, of course, when he's going to hit his. I mean, Secret Wars 1, as silly as it is, changed comics forever and was like the biggest thing for Marvel. Secret Wars 2 is where he loses his goddamn mind.
Well, it's a classic story of live long enough to see yourself become the villain, right?
Yeah, I think that's definitely the thing. Is like we are always left with that bad taste of the end of Shooter's run, but it's like actually Shooter was very good for the company initially. It's tough to remember that.
And just as a reminder for those who maybe aren't as deep in the lore as we are, Jim Shooter is, of course, at this time editor-in-chief at Marvel.
Yes.
And kind of assumed the reins after a period of chaos following Stan Lee's departure from the company.
Yeah, once Stan Lee left on sort of running the place day to day, Roy Thomas takes over for a little while. Mm-hmm. But that, in all respect to the great Roy Thomas, but it was sort of like he was the protege of Stan Lee, but it became very clear very quickly he wasn't Stan Lee. Mm-hmm. And yeah, Jim Shooter, though, comes in was it, I think 78, he ends up taking over the company.
I mean, we talked about it in a previous episode because it happens right after this comic starts, basically.
Right, yeah.
And this comic like kind of represents this weird bridge period in Marvel Comics. And so it's been interesting to follow the history of Marvel along with this book in a
Well,
way.
because what happens basically, I'm looking at this again, it's sort of like Roy Thomas steps down because he's like, I'm really a writer, I can't run this company. And then they basically try out Len Wein, Marv Wolfman, Jerry Conway, and Archie Goodwin all like
Yeah.
kind of try the job before they land on Shooter. Because it's a weird thing. Just because you're a good comics writer doesn't mean, or even if you're a good comics editor, doesn't mean you can be the editor-in-chief of the entire company.
Right. Even while we've been reading this book, we've seen Roy Thomas as the primary writer on it. And that
Right.
was, at the time, something he was just doing to help keep the company afloat because they needed a book that sold well. So they took
Right.
this weird random property, whatever a Star Wars is, and we'll make a comic book about it.
Right. But like, here's the thing: Shooter was, as they say, 9 years of editor-in-chief, and this is what people tuned into Shootercast for. No, but I think it's key for the thing because we do mention him a lot. But like, under Shooter's reign, you have Claremont and Burns' X-Men, Frank Miller's Daredevil, Walt Simonson's Thor, Roger Stern's Avengers, and Spider-Man run. So I mean, it's like a lot of the most iconic comics were at least signed off on by Jim Shooter.
Yeah, 100%.
But he so fucks up the company at the end of his run that we as comic book fans are always like, oh, fucking Shooter, am I right?
He put Marvel in a position to be bought by a toy company.
Yeah. He also and he also was prickly. I think that's a key thing too, is people didn't like the guy. He didn't have a great relationship with a lot of the creators. So I think that's also, we react a lot to the John Burns and stuff going like, I hate that man.
Well, it doesn't help that we have a textual document of him writing himself as a literal god, rewriting the universe he was in charge of.
Yeah.
And that is Secret Wars 2, for those who don't know.
Yeah. And by the way, it is John Byrne who was the guy I was quoting earlier who said like he was the guy they needed, and then he just stayed too long and kept trying to innovate.
Yeah.
And eventually, John Byrne famously abandons Marvel under Shooter's run to go work at DC.
Which is how we get his Superman run, right?
Yes, that's exactly it. Which is still my favorite Superman run. But you know, I mean, it all worked out. But that's also Frank Miller, same thing. And that's where we get Dark Knight Returns. So it's like, you could still argue that even Shooter's shitty stuff led to really amazing classic comics. But, you know, whatever. Anyway, back to something that is far from a classic comic. I don't hear much people talk about the iconic Jawa Express issue.
Yeah, let's talk about the Jawa Express. Boy, let's start with this cover here.
This cover is something, man. It is really something.
It's rolling, and not even the Empire can stop it. It's the Jawa Express.
I know it's like, are you guys really trying to like make this a thing?
It feels like it.
Because this is one of the most like energetic covers they've had. Join Luke, Han, and Chewie on the Jawa Express.
Ooh, teeny. If you're not watching us on YouTube, you can't see me doing the arm pumping honk the horn motion as I say teeny.
But look, here comes all of our heroes. They're running in front of a sandcrawler, blasting away, including their Jawa buddies who are right beside them, blasting away as well. Which doesn't really happen in this issue.
If anything, we'll talk about the moral ambiguity of what Han, Luke, and Chewie do to these Jawas, because they're in a real shady gray area in terms of Jawa vehicle ethics.
Yep, and also we're going to really get more into the autonomy of droids and whether or not they're people, because at a certain point, we'll get into that. There's
this
some weird
book
stuff
seems to posit no.
No, they are just.
In fact, 3PO seems to posit that they're not.
That's the biggest thing, is even the droids themselves are like, we're just things.
Yeah, we'll get to it. Again, that last haunting line from 3PO from the holiday special always comes back to me.
Nothing will. By the way, as of the release of this, I haven't watched it yet, but I do now have the documentary about the holiday special.
Ooh, awesome. That's finally out,
It just came out, so I'm probably going to watch that later tonight.
Cool.
Very excited about that. Been waiting. Because I can watch that instead of the special. All right.
I recommend that.
Yeah. But I want to talk about even look at this. There's a logo for the Jawa Express.
This looks like something that would be painted on the side of a truck, and I'm here for it.
Yeah, I'm currently having that painted on the side of my car, actually.
And you just know if this was like at a bus stop somewhere, the express part would be in neon.
It looks like that. You can see where the outline is just like zzz, zzz, the Jawa Express. Because we open on dawn on the Dune Sea.
Yeah, we got some speeder troubles here as we meet our heroes. Last we left our heroes, they were hightailing it out of Mos Eisley with the Empire on their tail. Luke was on a mission here to find some spice freighters to act as blockade runners for the rebellion. Han and Chewie just happened to be here, I guess.
They had, and they'll mention this a few times, they had, once again, turned in Jabba the Hutt for a reward?
No. So what happened is they dropped Jabba the Hutt with one T off at home. Presumably he lives next door to Jabba the Hutt with two T's.
And then he paid them? Because they talk about having money. So wait, this is what gets me. They go from owing Jabba the Hutt money to him giving them money.
Well, because they saved him from all of those cave bugs.
But I like the idea that like that was whatever the value of saving Jabba the Hutt with one T was more than. It wasn't like we're just going to wipe the debt clean. It's like, no, you've done more than what you owed me. I actually need to pay you a little more.
Well, look, if there's anyone who's going to be doing arithmetic on life debts, it's Chewbacca the Wookiee.
He pulls out his little half glasses.
He's got his green visor. Pulls out the ratcheting teller machine.
Yeah, I see right here. That's about $800 in our favor.
If you can't trust a Wookiee's math on life debt, then I don't know what we're doing here.
It's kind of their thing. So yes, I do like Han saying, "Kid, what we got here is a sick land speeder." No shit, Han. There's smoke pouring out of it, and it's like mostly buried in sand. And he's like, "Yeah, I guess it's broken."
So fun thing about this land speeder here that we see shown is, and it's something we commented on last issue as well, but I think I had to double check. This is not the sand speeder we see in the movie. It is like vaguely similar, but it is in shape. But specifically, this is the speeder as presented by Kenner Toys.
Because this is exactly what my speeder looked like as a kid.
Yes.
100%. That bubble shield, those three engines, this rounded front. I know I played with this so much as a kid.
The specific giveaway for it, and it's what got me thinking about it in the beginning with, is how the seats are lined up inside the speeder itself. Because they're separated by that console in the center. And I was like, I don't think that's a thing in the movie. And I went back and looked, and it's kind of there, but they're mostly bucket seats in the movie.
Yes. No, this is exactly what the toy looked like, is right.
So I find that interesting.
But once again, Han is offering nothing. He's just going like, it's broken.
And if we don't get out of here soon, the Suns are going to cook us. Because remember, there's two of them.
Yeah, remember, sons, plural. And then I love Chewie just sitting on the hood of the thing. And 3PO in a pose of like, whoa, Chewie, just be careful, man. Look out, just, okay.
Well, look, 3PO has not had the best of luck when it comes to rolling around on the dune sea of Tatooine.
Doesn't 3PO at a certain point just have to be like, how the fuck did I end up back here?
Well, unless we forget, of course, this is not the case in this, as this is being written, but like, this is where 3PO was built.
Yes, that's true. 3PO just keeps ending up back on this desert world. And once again, we've brought up, why is 3PO here on this mission?
Doesn't seem like translate into smuggleries.
I guess that's the loosest thing. It's just like, because that's what people would want.
Yeah, sure. And look, if Luke's going to be rolling around as a guy out in the galaxy, he needs a couple of Rosencrantz and Guildenstern droid motherfuckers rolling with him.
That's kind of what the comic posits basically is. They are just Luke's sidekicks. Yeah. That is what they offer to the rebellion. Wherever Luke goes, those two go as well. I mean, like R2 actually, that is the case. And But R2's most astromech droids go with their pilots from place to place. That makes sense. They have a purpose to serve. 3PO is just a detriment in most missions.
Well, and R2 is like the Swiss Army knife of droids, right?
Yes,
Like,
exactly.
he's got a little proboscis for whatever you need him to do.
So, spoiler, he will do nothing in this. But,
Well, look, if anything, he'll get strapped to the back and be turned off for most of the issue, but...
yeah, we'll talk about how much of these droids are just shut down, further adding to why are they here.
Yeah. Well, if they weren't here, they wouldn't be able to get out of this jam, because on this next page, we figure out that Luke, the little grease monkey is fixing up. He thinks he can get it going, but the real problem they're running into here is that they are out of coolant. So even if their engine is repaired, they leaked enough coolant that it would just overheat and break again if they got it up and running.
Yeah, exactly. And I love, once again, Luke is doing all this work and Han is supervising.
Look, if there's one thing Han Solo's great at, it's watching and looking cool and collected while other people are doing the hard work.
Yeah, just Han's the guy who's going like, I wouldn't use that wrench. Do you want to help? No. Do whatever you want, And then in the meantime, what's this? A distinct North?
Chewie detects a disturbance in the North.
I do like this thing where it's just like they're working on the thing, they're having this conversation, and then just this little interlude with Chewie where he's like, huh? Danger abound.
He smells something on the wind, and he goes up over a rise, and what's this? An entire sweeping patrol of stormtroopers and dewbacks rolling across the Dune Sea.
What he sees in the distance through shimmering heat is nothing to gladden a Wookiee's heart.
That's true. If there's two things Wookiees don't like, it's imperialistic fascism and lizards.
Yep, that's well established. But this is another thing where it's like...
you thought I was joking, John. No, in fact, the long-standing rivalry between Wookiees and Trandoshans goes back generations.
Oh, well, of course. Who could forget?
I'm not even joking.
I can forget. I probably just never do that. I believe you, though. Of course. That sounds about right. But no, this is another thing, though, where it's like, this is very comics of this era. It's like, I think if we see Chewie go over a ridge and then we have this shot of all these stormtroopers, we don't need to know that it upsets Chewie. I think we can assume he knows that's trouble. And then we get Han, and then we get Han and Luke to confirm, indeed, that is trouble.
Well, what if Chewie was lying to him?
What a patrol of Imperial troops! I gotta see this for myself. I can't take Chewie's word on this.
Chewbacca the Wookiee, famous liar. Yeah.
No, you can't trust him. He's constantly lying to people. It's a huge problem, actually. This is another one of your gags. Nope, there they are. Yeah. And so, and then I love Luke just being like, sorry, Han, I keep pulling you into this shit, man.
And he's not wrong. But he is cut off by 3PO really, really kind of downplaying the argument that droids are people too, when he says, you could always shut us down, drain R2 and I of fluid, coolant.
Yeah.
Sorry, it's a very vampiric thing going on here. It's very bizarre.
Drain us of our liquids, basically, is what he's saying.
Yeah. And I mean, it turns out this is R2's idea, because he says, pipe down, R2. You'll get credit for the idea at the proper time. So, like, R2 was the one who's like, shut us down, man. Bleed us dry. Then you can get out of here.
And then, so they are off. They have turned off their friends. And R2 strapped to the back of the speeder, unconscious, for all intents and purposes, dead 3PO still in the passenger seat.
Yeah.
So disturbing to think there's just a turned off 3PO just sitting there with no life in him next to Luke.
So, here's the constant struggle with Star Wars droids, right? It's like, okay, they have personality matrices, whatever that is. They have something that replicates a sapient intelligence They
Yeah.
are self-aware. They can be like, their programming goes so deep to the point where it's almost like miraculous how much of a
Right.
personality
Right.
they can have.
Yeah.
And yet, and yet,
Yeah. And
a
yet.
lot of them are just fine with being treated as machines because they recognize themselves as that.
Turn me off, man. If that's what needs to happen.
There's a scene in A New Hope where 3PO's like, if you don't need me, I'm just going to shut off for a little while.
Yes. There's also the scene in Empire where Han gets upset with him and tells Leia to turn him off, to shut him up, and she just does it. There's like, that's enough out of this guy.
Yeah. So it's something that has been oft discussed in the realms of Star Wars fandom.
Yeah.
This idea that like, okay, but droids are people, right?
Yeah.
And the answer is sometimes.
Yeah, you know what? You know who these droids need the help of? One Jean-Luc Picard, who spent an entire episode of. It's very interesting. The opposite, of course, there are less robots in Star Trek, but they're always constantly arguing about whether or not they're living sentient beings in that franchise.
Well, it's when you have your most prominent robot basically trying to figure out whether or not he's people through the entire thrust of the most popular series of your franchise.
Yeah. 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 Is he? Yes. Spoilers for the culmination of his arc is he does become a person.
Yeah, pretty sure. In fact, he incorporates all the good and the bad, and spoilers for Picard, but it's beautiful.
It's the best ending to Data's story I could ever imagine. But boy, this close up of what romance comic did these two come out of? This Han and Luke with their bluest of blue eyes and their kind of longing looks at each other.
There's a flirty thing going on here because they're trying to get to Luke's ship that he hid under that tarp in the last issue.
Yeah. The magic tarp that made it so you couldn't. Was it like scanners can't read it or whatever?
Right. But it turns out that scanners can't fool the Jawas.
Yeah, there they go. And they've already done a pretty good job stripping this thing down. They are efficient little bastards, aren't they?
I mean, if there's one thing we know about Jawas is they don't waste any time.
But look at this thing. I mean, that thing is down to its very just like base.
They've got it down to basically the skeleton of the hull, and they're just wheeling it all into their sandcrawler here. One detail about the sandcrawler that like really weirded me out in this particular art is the articulated treads.
Yes.
The fact that they're like at an angle, and it's like, oh, I guess that would be something they could probably do. I don't know. I always assumed they were like fixed treads, like a tank.
Right. Yeah.
No. I don't know. This sandcrawler is not super to scale either, because in every other like live action sandcrawler we've seen, there's been like a height verticality to it. There's like you could walk under one of these things because it's so tall.
I do also, my favorite Jawas are the two on the loading platform who are going, bring it in. Mm-hmm. There we go, over there. Little, yeah. They're really good. They work as they're a great team, the Jawas.
Yeah. We got Chewie with a good bark here.
Bark. And then Luke's like, I better get down there. Hey, you Jawas, knock it off.
And the Jawa's like, who the fuck is this guy?
Can we talk about the Jawa hands that definitely don't look like Jawa hands?
Jawa hands are a lot like Wookiee hands in that, like, you don't really remember what they actually look like.
I know, that's why I'm going, like, now I have to look up what Jawas look like.
They're little furry hands. They got, like, black hairy hands.
Yeah, but these are weird. These are, like, scaly.
Or maybe they're, like, wrapped up in, like, leather gloves. It's tough to say.
Oh, yeah, it is because of I'm looking at them. Yeah.
Add that to your algorithm right there. Jawa hands.
Jawa hands.
It's right up there with Wookiee feet.
Yeah. Yes. Guys into weird shit, man. Yeah, they kind of... It almost looks like they are already wearing gloves.
Yeah.
But they're
And
they're like a fur glove. They don't this reads as weird to me is all I'm saying.
yeah, no, that's fair. And look, the weird like really pointy hoods they're also wearing are kind of like,
Yeah.
I don't know, get a very Legend of Zelda Wizrobe vibe from them.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, and so Hans, we go turn the page, and Hans like, all right, don't piss off the Jawas. We need to make friends with some people because we're in a bind here. And as they
I
talk about, they've already mostly stripped the ship down. So what are you trying to accomplish?
Yeah, it's not like they're gonna put it back together
Yeah.
post haste. I really like Han Solo here. I think this is a very Han Solo move.
Agreed. This is very much this is one of the rare moments where he really does feel like the character. I love his line about it's time to be charming. You know, it's like this is a guy who's used to like changing tactics, whatever it is to get out of a situation alive or whatever, is just to be like, okay, this requires this.
Yeah,
You know,
I mean,
because that's
I like the line here. Promise them anything, kid, as long as they'd agree to get us back to Mos Eisley.
yeah, well, because that's also Han too, right? It's like just get the situation going, and then we'll figure out how to get out of it later.
Yeah, exactly.
And Luke is the comic book Luke is so much angrier than movie Luke.
He's, let's be perfectly honest. Movie Luke from A New Hope didn't have a lot of character beyond like youthful enthusiasm, right?
I mean, that's always it's the classic impression of him and stuff. I need to get power converters, like
right. Yeah. And that change, like, if you rewatch the movie, like, he is pretty whiny in the first half. And in the second half, he sort of buckles it down. He's like, I gotta help the rebellion. It's not until Empire, though, that we really get, like, decent characterization of Luke in terms of...
Oh, you mean when a writer who's good at writing characters comes in?
Maybe.
Might have something to do.
This book kind of vacillates between those two states that we see him in A New Hope. Kind of page to page, depending on what the scene needs.
Oh yeah, they don't have a strong take on this character, but he so often is like, look at this. He's like scout. Look at this. The second panel in the second row there, where he's just looking at this Joe. Is like, God damn it.
Well, I mean, I understand why he's upset because they're also promising to sell the droids at this point.
Yeah,
And
once
Luke
again,
even says
now droids are very much people.
Because Luke's line here is 3PO and R2 aren't just robots to me. They're friends. I'd feel like a slaver if he sold them. And it's like, wow, okay, that now we're vacillating back in the other direction.
Yes, but I was perfectly fine bleeding them the precious fluids a second ago.
And making them effectively dead.
Yep. Look, I will kill my friends, but I will not sell them.
That's a moral stance.
Yes, it is. I guess, yeah, we're zeroing in on Luke's morality here.
But this is where we get Han's line about he stashed a bonus from Jabba the Hutt with 1T aboard the Millennium Falcon. So once we get back to Mos Eisley, we can buy back the droids. Everything will be fine.
Now, I prefer the Mandalorian way of dealing with Jawas and just disintegrating them.
Or getting them a big egg.
Either way, why not both, was what Mando said. And then when we go to the next page, we get a lot of comedy from the Sandcrawler being too small for a man of Han Solo's size. Get ready, folks.
We also have Luke translating, though, saying, like, look, they agreed to take us to Mos Eisley, but only after their current scavenging run, which is going to take them 3 months across the Jundland wastes.
But 3 months, we'll die of concussions banging around in these Jawa-sized compartments, kids. You know, we're doing some bits in here, too.
Look, if you're going to have Han Solo walking around in a sandcrawler built for Jawas, I'm shocked it wasn't Chewie who hit his head. Let's be fair.
That is true. He just sort of like the considerably taller one seems to be getting on just fine. But what's this? It's a stormtrooper patrol out here going, hey, pull it on over.
I love stormtroopers as patrol officers.
Yeah. I mean, it's that of course that classic long ago sketch of what is it, Troopers or whatever? That's the cops or troops.
Yeah, I mean that wasn't even a sketch really. It was like a Star Wars fan film. I think it is just called Troops. You can find it on YouTube these days, but it's is like
very funny.
What if stormtroopers but cops?
Yeah. And it's just the day-to-day, like, all right, what we're responding to a call out here, you know. Excuse me,
Can we?
sir. Can you turn the music down?
Yeah, we got a lot of the same problems with the art on these stormtroopers as we've had in previous issues.
Oh,
Their
yeah.
helmets are too buckety. Why are all of them wearing the orange shoulder pads here? That I guess that denotes sand troopers.
Yeah, that's according to this. They don't have necks.
I want to talk about the dewback face in this panel, though.
The fact that it's kind of like sinister looking.
Or the fact that you can see both of its eyes staring
Yeah.
forward. It's got this weird derpy kind of like,
But it's also got this smirk of a face going like,
yeah, like it knows what's up. I don't know. It looks more like a pangolin here than an actual giant lizard.
it's weird. Weird choices abound from our friend Carmine. Yeah, so we go to the next page, and it is basically like, hey man, shut up, it's the cops. Just be cool.
Well, and Luke saying like, look, these guys are probably going to sell us out because why wouldn't they? We're just a couple of randos they found in the desert.
Yeah, they're not actually part of the rebellion or anything. So,
No.
Jesus Christ, man, they just want to get out of here and back to business. They don't give a shit about us. And so then Han says, great, then we'll murder everyone.
We get a brief on the top right panel here, a brief return of ape-faced Chewie for some reason.
Yeah. He
But it's
briefly
immediately gone in the panel
Yeah.
below that.
because they fadow and vabam the hell out of these guys.
Okay, here's where we get into the murky ethics of what they're doing here. Because Han's plan to get the Jawas to go along with them is to open fire on the stormtroopers, basically making it so the Jawas don't have a choice in helping them, because the stormtroopers now think the Jawas are shooting at them.
Oh, you tried to explain to them you weren't part of the murder plan.
This is some training day bullshit.
Yeah, man. And I love the idea about like, wait, no, Chewie, it's going to be a lot easier. Don't shoot at the stormtroopers. Shoot at the ground around them so they fall to their deaths in a horrible avalanche of rocks.
Right. Well, because the thing is here is like, okay, if we don't get all the stormtroopers right away, one of them is going to get a proton grenade off and we're going to be fucked. So we got to be able to kill all of them all at once. How do we do that? Start an avalanche.
Yep.
Which they do.
This issue is really good at portraying Han Solo as the charming murderer that he is.
It's true. And there's a huge boom on the next page because guess what? Grenades, even if you don't shoot them directly, will still explode when buried under rubble.
And then I just like, all right, move it out.
The Jawas are surprisingly cool with all of this.
Yeah, they just kind of, these Jawas just kind of roll with whatever the situation is. They're like, all right, well, if everybody's dead, then I guess back to work, everybody. Yeah, it sounds good. All right, here we go. Yeah, it is weird. The Jawas are kind of a non-entity in this, right? Like they're morally neutral, like they're neutral to the political discussion at play here. It's like they can, in return for goods, they'll help the rebels, but if it behooves them to turn them over to the Empire, they'll probably do that. But now that the rebels have killed the Imperial guards and they're back to, I guess we'll help you now, because that's just kind of whatever's in front of them, which is weird. They just have nothing to offer.
Look, when you're on the Jawa Express, John, you just got to keep rolling. That's how it works.
The Jawa Express stops for no one.
If anything, the Jawa Express is a metaphor for political neutrality and how if one tries to avoid making any decisions vis-a-vis the moral implications of a galactic fascistic government, you can get away with it if you got a sandcrawler.
Yeah, man. That's it exactly. Deep book, actually, now that you think about it.
If you really think about it.
if you really read in and make up a bunch of bullshit, then this is really insightful.
But they have to take the long way around, unfortunately. They were hoping to avoid the Jundland Wastes, but now they got to go through it.
Which we already have been to.
Right, because we briefly saw in a previous issue that the House of Tag is doing something hinky out there.
Yeah, which is what Luke says here when we turn the page. He's like, I don't know, House of Tag is up to no good. Those crazy tags, you know how they are.
Yeah, you know how they be with their cyber vision and their Imperial ties.
They are weird, man.
Yeah. So his mission for the Alliance was to find blockade runners. We already knew this. We're driving out into the middle of the Jundland Waste, trying to get back to Mos Eisley. But what's this? We're stopping, and Han hits his head again.
Oh, of course. Yeah. Ow. And then they're like, look, it's a vaporator.
Yeah, it's a giant evaporator. So evaporators, for those who don't know, are a thing on Tatooine specifically, but any arid planet that like collect moisture.
Right.
And like that's how moisture farming works.
Right. That's the thing here. Yeah. Is always like a clever idea in Star Wars, right? Or like a thing, the idea that like, oh, what you would need is water in a desert planet, so there would be value to this kind of moisture farming. I always thought it was like, oh, it's pretty clever.
Yeah, and again, Frank Herbert very
Oh,
graciously not suing anybody.
Yeah, he wanted it known. All right, he could have anytime, man. He could have pulled that trigger.
He could have. He chose not to out of benevolence.
Yeah, you know what? Yeah, I love all those quotes where he's just like, "I'm gonna let it slide because I'm just that cool a guy." You know what I mean? Let's not get upset about anything. Don't rock the boat, Frank. All right. So then when they go there, though, they're like, oh, no, this evaporator is freezing cold.
It's also huge.
Yeah.
Like normal evaporators are like the size of a person, maybe a little bit taller. These ones jut out of the sands like giant towers. And it looks like they're not the only people who notice because there's another sandcrawler in the distance. There's also a second evaporator over on a distant hill.
Yeah. And so when we turn the page, I love Han wrangling these Jawas and Chewie just picking up a couple.
Well, because Luke, through some chilling tingle, goes, Han, Chewbacca, we've got to get the Jawas and ourselves away from this thing fast.
And Han, not one to question, warnings of danger, is just like, all right, let's get him out of here.
Yeah, I like Han's line here. Hustle at half pints. The kid's not given to practical jokes.
Unlike Chewie the liar.
Well, he's also known as Chewie the cut up.
Yeah. Oh, God. Yeah, he's the class clown on the Falcon. And then all of a sudden, something sweeps the desert plain before the tower. Something impossible.
What do you think of the artistic choice here? Because we have our two panels in color where Luke gives the warning, they're hustling the Jawas away, and then we just get this big, vast, expansive landscape that is all whites and blacks.
It's cool in concept. I wish they continued that aesthetic to matter at all.
Yeah, because it's this idea that like something goes off and it turns the world white for a second.
Yeah, but then I feel like the rest of this should be devoid of color. Like if they had decided to like bleed the whole thing of color once the freezing of this, but no, it just goes right back to the most vivid of colors as always.
Yeah, I don't know. I kind of dig it in that like it is representational of like something big and explosive happening, but also nothing's exploding. So that how to get that across.
Yeah, no, like I said, I just wish it had continued into feeling like there's a massive difference beyond just now some things are frozen.
Yeah, because whether we find out is that everything is cold now for some reason on Tatooine with the two suns and everything.
That's crazy. Well, and Chewie's most concerned at all because he's saying "Warog,"
a classic Wookiee exclamation,
and something Archie Goodwin is always trying to get in here. You said it, big buddy. Stop it. Stop that now.
I need to go back and rewatch the original trilogy because I don't know he never says big buddy. You sure?
I can assure you. Now I also haven't maybe watched closely and certainly not with the intent of that, but I can pretty much guarantee he didn't.
Okay.
Prove me wrong in the comments below if you
All right. Yeah.
I want receipts on that.
But Han exclaiming, the whole plane's frozen, and Luke with the rejoinder, not just the plane, look. And on the next page, we see a flash-frozen sandcrawler.
It's pretty cool.
It's pretty cool, especially the rainbow shrack we get at the bottom of the page.
Yeah, the cracking of the ice.
Because it froze so quickly that, like, the metal is shattering in this sandcrawler. That is... Yeah. I think this is we're going to be dealing with this concept and what this like weapon system is over this issue and the next one. I think this is pretty fucking cool, actually.
is, but it will lead to. We'll talk about this more in the next week's episode. So I'll
And
get
next week there is a huge logical inconsistency with how this weapon works that
yeah.
we'll get into next issue.
It is cool, but there's also an impracticality to it that's a little
Sure.
bit like I don't quite know what end game on this is beyond. Well, that's nuts.
It's yet another wild Imperial super weapon is what it's going to turn out to be. Shocking.
Because now here come the tags to examine how this went, and
Yeah.
immediately we have Baron Tag saying, "Excellent, excellent."
Under the merciless twin suns of this hellhole planet, you've achieved this, he says, like gesturing at the frozen sandcrawler.
And I love Silas being like, "Oh no, it's not just the thing. Go inside. All the bodies inside are frozen too. Don't worry. This thing is merciless."
Yeah.
And then we get my favorite design, which I really want an action figure of, which is Baron Tag in his little parka.
Oh, you mean when he's cosplaying as Captain Cold?
100%. Come on, man. And this is Carmen Infantino, famous for drawing The Flash.
Yeah.
He's literally just drawing Captain Cold again.
This has to be on purpose, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah, he's gone from Mr. Sinister to Captain Cold.
Yeah, I mean the blue parka with the white trim around the face and the hood.
And then when he's got his cyber glasses that look like the goggles.
It's uncanny.
Yeah. Come on, man.
Yeah, and this is Orman and Silas Tag. Orman, of course, being the first name of Baron Tag, the same Baron Tag we've been dealing with for the last little while.
We finally get a name for this weapon, too, which is the Omega Frost.
Yeah, look, someone clearly read their Icy Nines and were like,
yes, the Omega Frost will be activated.
We got two of the Tag brothers here. They have built this thing out in the middle of the wasteland as like the new weapon that's going to put them on the books for the Emperor and finally show up that damn Darth Vader.
Well, as he says, it's going to be the club with which we beat Darth Vader from the Emperor's favor. That's a mouthful.
That's a fun villain line right there.
All of his lines are so evil.
Oh, he's so evil. And we get into it further in this book as we go along, but the fact that, like, no, it's not all of the Tags. It's just him. Everyone else in the family's like, God, can you give it a rest?
I do love all the other guys. I'm like, oh, Jesus Christ. This guy, man. I mean, they're all, like, vaguely evil, but everyone else is a little bit more banal about it. He's just like, oh, yes, and then my revenge will be swift. And the rest of them are just going like, could you just kill somebody and, like, not make a thing about it? Why does it always have to be a thing?
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
So, they're discussing the Omega Frost. It'll work basically anywhere outside of, like, the heart of a sun.
Yes.
But it turns out they're also super aware that Han and Chewie and Luke are observing them in the distance. Because it turns out, guess what? You don't just leave an Imperial superweapon laying around in the desert without, like, a sensor net in the area.
Because that's what he's going. It's like, they don't know, we know that they're out there. Get Kenner on the line and order up another troop transporter. And there it is.
Yeah. They come swipping across the ice, and they start opening fire on the hill that Luke and friends are hiding out on.
And he specifically, one of them is Luke Skywalker. I want him alive to deal with personally.
Right. Well, because he even says, if units 2 and 3 are in position, let's begin herding them where we want them. So he's like, he's not trying to kill them. He's trying to corral them.
Yeah. But he really wants Luke Skywalker specifically because he's on his long list of vendettas.
Ugh, so many vendettas with this guy.
That's coming up, isn't it? I can't remember if it's this issue or the next, where he's like, oh, you and your vendetta. Who's not on your vendetta list? It's like, jeez.
But Han and Luke are like, oh, they're shooting at us. Let's try to get away.
And there they go, running away. And then Luke is the one who figures out, wait, they're not trying to kill us. They are trying to hurt us somewhere.
Yeah, even Imperials know to cut off our line of retreat before moving in. It sounds like they've been getting in some of those rebel strategy meetings, kid.
Wait. Han's the guy going, you actually read the manuals and shit? I've just been flying around. I don't know. Jesus Christ.
There's a lot of implication in this issue in particular. Just like, actually, Luke's been kind of learning some stuff like lately.
There is, like, once again, because we are edging closer to Empire Strikes Back coming out, of course.
Empire Watch.
Yeah, it's on the horizon. But no, there is sort of like, okay, well, they are ever so slightly pushing Luke forward as a character, knowing they can only do so much because the movie's coming. But they are indicating what more modern books are trying to fill in the gaps of more consciously about, like, well, how do you get the farm kid to the more experienced fighter we meet in Empire, and then of course even more so the full-on badass Jedi Knight in Jedi.
Mm-hmm.
So
I'd be curious to know what the timeline is on. Okay, so the movie Empire Strikes Back is going to come out before the comic book coverage starts. We've already talked about that.
Right. Yeah.
I'm curious if the first trailers for Empire Strikes Back have already started coming out.
Ooh,
like, obviously, people don't have the kind of access to them that they would do today. You can't just go on YouTube and watch a trailer. But it would be in front of other films.
Yeah. I wonder if I can find that information. Like, when did the trailers roll out?
I'll work on that. I'll describe the bottom of this page because we end with Han very pragmatically being like, look, we're flying blind, Luke. We're scrounging and scavenging, and the Jawas, they're going to turn on us the first chance they get. But then Luke turns and starts talking to one of these Jawas, and Luke can apparently speak Jawa, which, sure, fine. He grew up here. Why not?
Yeah. No, yeah, it's absolutely.
But he says, the Jawas are grateful because we saved their life. We got them out of the way of the Omega Frost. They want to help us out now.
Right. Yes, exactly. Ooh, that would have been interesting. Now, the year before Empire Strikes Back, you have Star Trek: The Motion Picture and The Black Hole. How crazy would it have been to have gone to Star Trek and get a Star Wars trailer? I don't know if that happened, but I'm saying that would have been interesting.
Yeah. I don't think the trailer would have been out that soon before.
No, because that's probably the summer before. It's probably like a full year. Yeah. And the marketing campaigns for these things didn't have the like years long rollout like we have now, where they're literally making trailers before they've even shot the movie.
This is going to date this episode a little bit, but there was a trailer just released for the new Dragon Age game, and it's the first trailer for that game was released in 2018. This current release of a trailer was a trailer for the announcement of what the game is going to be next summer.
Right. One of my favorite things ever is the Alien 3 teaser before they'd shot the movie, right?
Mm-hmm.
And do you know about this?
Yes.
And the whole thing is it's all planet Earth, and it's like they're coming here next summer. You know, that's not the plot of the movie at all.
Yeah.
Yeah. August 15th, 1979, the Empire Strikes Back trailer was released to theaters.
Okay, so the trailer for Empire Strikes Back is floating around at this point.
And
so they have
in front of, because you got to keep in mind there's no home video. It was premiered in front of a re-release of the first Star Wars. You went to see Star Wars and got an exclusive first look at the next Star Wars.
That's good marketing right there.
Yeah. They talk about it's interesting because it does showcase the first teaser was just concept art and still photos.
Interesting. So they actually don't really have a sense of what the movie is.
Yeah. No. And and there's a couple things, but they talk about like they really held back Yoda in the early trailers.
Oh yeah. I mean, if you go into Star Wars knowing that Yoda is there would be this like knee-jerk reaction to ridicule the film, right? Because like, what's this puppet shit?
But I think the initial first trailer we're talking about that premiered almost a full year before the movie was just Star Wars titles, concept art, and apparently Harrison Ford narration.
Cool.
Wow. Like, next summer it begins, the whatever.
The Empire will strike back.
Yeah, the Empire's going to strike back or something.
Speaking of striking back, so moments later, the Imperial troop gets over the rise and is coming right at them. They're hoping to herd Luke and friends into a trap, but what's this?
It's a sandcrawler coming right at them. It's the Jawa Express!
Whoop whoop.
And we see this Imperial troop transport turn over, and kids everywhere were like, "Oh, cool! I've done that with my toy."
Yeah, the troop transport jackknifes to get out of the way of the sand crawler and ends up toppling over. All the troops go spilling out, and Baron Tag has to pry his way out because he was in the front of this thing.
Which I don't. Tag being in the transport seems like he'd have his own vehicle and would probably let those guys go first and get killed. But
Yeah,
whatever.
but Ormond specifically is the guy to be like, I will see to this myself.
And then there goes the sandcrawler driving away into the distance. And all I can think of, because it's 1980, but this is still probably written in 79. This has a real, we got a great big convoy taking it around the world. We got a trucking convoy.
They're pulling down the Junlin Waste and just like going in the opposite direction. You see Burt Reynolds in a big rig.
Down, loaded up and trucking. Hey, pretty good there. Hey, man, number 2 movie of 1977. Lest we forget, Smokey and the Bandit.
Insane.
That was the second biggest movie that year, and the movie that Fox was like, we're gonna get destroyed by. Star Wars is in real trouble because it can't compete with Smokey and the Bandit. People, now he's such a comic figure to people, but legitimately, Burt Reynolds was the #1 movie star in the world at this point.
Absolutely, sure.
Yeah, he was huge. So yeah, there they go though, escaping in got to be one of the slowest moving vehicles in all of Star Wars.
It's up there. It's definitely up there.
But they are just trucking along.
I think it's maybe only beat out by the AT-AT in terms of like ponderous speed.
God, the AT-AT is mostly about intimidation factor, right? You're just hoping everybody runs away from the size of that thing.
Well, and I mean, it can get over certain terrain features that things with wheels couldn't.
Yeah.
But again, we're living in a world where a lot of the vehicles hover, so I don't know why that would be a concern.
Right. Yeah. The AT-ST moves a little bit more,
Yeah.
That thing's going to traverse a little faster. Yeah, so here we go, though. Now we've got... here come more troop carriers, though.
Right, because Baron Tag's like, look, those 2 troops that were waiting to ambush these guys, bring them in. Now we got a chase going on.
And what is Chewie throwing out of the...
They're fuel containers. They're like, okay, this thing doesn't have any weapons.
He calls it Skyhopper propellant.
So Skyhoppers are like the little ships that Luke flies back home to target Womp Rats.
Oh, yeah. What is it? T-16?
T-16 Skyhopper.
Yeah, there you go.
So they drop a bunch of those canisters out behind the back of the sandcrawler.
He mentions here tagging Womp Rats.
Yeah. Blast. The way this lumbering monstrosity rattles and shakes still shouldn't be any tougher than potting Womp Rats from a land speeder with Uncle Owen's outmoded old energy rifle. Though, come to think of it, that was pretty tough.
Yeah. But don't worry, he fatooms.
He does fatoom in some
3 distinct fatooms.
Yeah, purple and pink fatooms.
And stuff blows up.
And he hits those things, and it creates a fucking wall of fire behind them.
Wall of fire. The desert is ablaze.
Look, you lay down some like jet fuel on sand and then light that shit with a laser blast, it's gonna go up.
Yeah, it's pretty good. So yeah, that goes up, and it's great.
What gets me is the troop transports are now like careening to get out of the way, except one of them goes headfirst into the wall of fire and then just explodes.
Because this is total like rules of action movies, right? Like if there's fire and a vehicle must explode. I'm sorry, that's just what has to happen. You know what I like is the one burning stormtrooper body being thrown.
Yeah, that's pretty grim.
It's mostly like twisted metal of the carrier, but you do see one guy's corpse being tossed.
Yeah. This ain't like A-Team where guys are gonna walk away from this van roll.
Particularly in this issue, so many people get killed. Our heroes kill so many people in this issue.
But they're free. They're away.
Because you can't stop the Jawa Express, man.
Can't stop the Jawa Express.
There it goes.
This is the 420 to Mos Eisley, and it ain't gonna get slowed down.
No, yeah, I mean, that's basically kind of what they do. They just barrel forward through these guys is sort of what ends up happening here. And
Well,
then,
and here's where we get really morally ambiguous because,
Yeah.
okay, we got away, but there's
Yeah.
no way they're going to let us walk away from this.
right.
Thankfully, the Jawas are so happy with what we've done for them that they've put some of their grungy ass fluids into 3PO and R2, so they're back up and moving.
Whatever we had lying around in a bucket, you know. Yeah. Yeah. So no. So yeah, our droid friends are back up, and then it's like, hold on, wait a minute. Basically, 3PO's just like, well, they have coolant, so they revived us with coolant. So can't we just put that back in our land speeder? Oh yeah.
And that's what they do.
Yeah.
So here's where it gets a little morally ambiguous. They know the Imperials are going to be coming after this sandcrawler,
Yeah.
and they just dip.
Yeah. Weeks.
So it's like he even says earlier in the page here,
Yeah.
that saved us, Luke, for the moment, but they're bound to have signaled ahead to Mos Eisley, but we
Yeah.
can't exactly sneak into there with a sandcrawler. So
Right.
like, the Empire's on the lookout for the sandcrawler, so we'll go back to Mos Eisley with a land speeder
Yeah.
and leave these Jawas to face Imperial wrath.
Right.
And they're cool with that?
Yeah,
I
man.
guess.
Yeah. Well, you know, the ends justify the means kind of thing, right? When it comes to the rebellion.
Well, and Luke has this line, it's like, and our Jawa friends can lose themselves in the Dune Sea.
It'll be fine. They drive around her all the time. It'll be all right.
They know the back alleys of the giant flat deserts of
Don't
Tatooine.
you worry. And so there they go. And they go like, well, we survived, which is good, but Tag is still going to be doing his shenanigans, but we know about him, and yeah, well, we'll have to figure that out in the next issue.
We gotta tell the rebellion, but unfortunately we find out in the depths of space, Luke Skywalker versus Baron Tag, the confrontation we've all been waiting for in Saber Clash.
It's Saber Clash 80.
Sunday,
Yeah.
Sunday, Sunday.
Oh yeah, it's Luke Skywalker versus Baron Tag in a no-holds cage match to the death. Yeah, no,
It won't be that.
no, but I do just like the idea of like, is this? I guess you're gonna finally get to see these two clash, and you're like, cool.
The moment you introduce a character who is using a lightsaber,
Yeah.
who has a thing against Darth Vader,
Yeah.
and is also a bad guy, your
No.
first thought is like, well, okay, he's gonna have a lightsaber fight with Luke Skywalker, right?
Yeah.
Like that
Well,
just has to happen.
It's also another thing. Once again, they don't want to infringe on the movie, so it's like, well, we need to give a character. Create a character who Luke could lightsaber fight with, because he obviously can't really duel with Vader, because we don't know what's going to happen in the next movie.
Right, exactly.
So it's like we basically have to have a Vader stand-in so we can get a lightsaber duel.
Is he a cyborg? Check. Is he an Imperial lackey? Check.
Yeah,
Does he have a lightsaber? Triple check. Okay, there we go.
Yeah, and but oh wait, we'll put one turn out with actually this guy hates Darth Vader.
Oh,
Wow, yeah.
twist.
Now we're thinking, yeah. So anyway, we'll get that epic saber clash next week on May the Panel Be With You. But in the meantime, if you want more of this show and all the shows from the Bunch of Entertainment Network, head over to our Patreon page, which is patron.podbean.com/punchup. Once again, that's patron.podbean.com/punchup. There you get cool exclusive bonus content, as well as help support all the shows here on the network.
It's true. And if you're just listening to this podcast, please come on over to the YouTube page. You can see all of these wacky things that we're talking about on the page here. Comic books are a visual medium. We feel it is the best way of appreciating the show is how we can show it and share it with you. And if you do so, please hit like, follow, subscribe, all that stuff on the YouTube page. Come down in the comments below. Let us know who are droids people? Are droids people? Can we answer this on YouTube right now?
Real quick. Are droids people?
Are droids people? Let us know in the comments below.
Yeah. You know what? And if anyone does recall that, I got to go with the Next Generation thing where Picard's like, I don't know, but do you want to take a chance that you're wrong? And I think that's the best thing. He's like, I can't say, but you also can't say they're not. I don't know.
I don't know. But I think that's going to do it for us this week on May the Panel Be With You. Because, as always, I've been Mike Gergoni.
I'm John Campbell.
And may the panel be with you.